Before you set goals, or if you've already set goals, before you pick a word, or before you try to become anything new, let's talk a little bit about what needs to be released.
You found the Midlife Revolution Unleashed, the space to embrace your wisdom, reignite your passions, and move boldly into what's next. I am Coach Wayne, the VIP coach.
And I'm Coach Stacy M. Lewis. We're here with insights, stories, and strategies to fuel your midlife journey. So take a breath, lean in. Your revolution starts now.
So, Stacy,
Yes, sir.
happy New Year. Happy New
Happy New
You.
Year. Happy New You.
Stacy, you're talking about folks that are starting the year exhausted from the get go. Come on now. I can't wait to see them in June.
Well, that is the whole point of tonight's episode. Welcome, family, to the Midlife Revolution Unleashed. I am Coach Stacy, a midlife women's coach, a nonprofit executive, and a lover of God and his people. And I'm here with my partner in crime, Wayne. And today, we're going to open our January theme, kind of the reset without pressure, with an honest conversation about what we're carrying into the year that no longer fits who we're becoming. What you got, Wayne? Introduce yourself to the people.
Okay, we'll do that. I'm Coach Wayne, the VIP coach. I work with the messy middlemen, midlife, who are trying to get to the next side, and I help them to do so, Stacy, so that their second half can be their best half.
I love the second half being the best half because it really, midlife is a great time. And we're here to celebrate the richness of it. And Wayne, I cannot tell you how many conversations I've had at the recording. It is January 8th. And I've had a number of conversations with women, people talking about how they're already exhausted. And all I say is like, okay, you gotta ease in. We have to ease in. Like maybe like we're starting a cross country race, right? We gotta ease in. People are
Yes.
exhausted already.
Yeah, and that New Year's resolution, Stacy,
Mm,
is already going down the toilet for most. I know this to be true because when you try to get into the gym the end of the year, first of the first week, it looks like you have to join a line. And I can tell you that right now the parking lot is getting a little bit empty. So folks are already, and see, Stacy, here's the thing. There's resolve and there's resolution.
mm.
Resolution is committing or saying that I have a plan, and a resolve is dedicating yourself to making the plan happen. I think, Stacy, a lot of folks start the new year exhausted because they're still carrying some 2025 baggage. They haven't let
Mm.
go. They're looking back and holding on.
Yeah. We want to say hello and happy new year to Delane. It's always good to see you in our listening lounge.
The new year,
And
sis.
Wayne, you're absolutely right. I love that distinction that you just shared. And tonight we'll talk a little bit about why exhaustion is often unexamined, carryover. It's not it's lack of discipline sometime, how to audit your energy without judging yourself, and what release might look like in midlife for men and women.
Yeah, and we need to be, when we talk about audit, we have to square up with ourselves and ask some very honest, open questions.
Hmm.
What am I still carrying around that doesn't serve me? Right, Stacey, we recently moved into a new home. We bought a new home, Audrey and I. And the home we're downsizing, as it were, because we had a lot more stuff. And we had to audit and determine what are we carrying that we haven't opened in a year. and dump it. And I would say this is true of folks as they enter into the new year.
Mhm.
Sometimes we are exhausted because we haven't pruned the old stuff that doesn't serve us anymore.
I couldn't agree with you more. And we entitled this episode that Midlife Clarity begins with this one question. And Wayne, I'm just going to reiterate the one question that you posed. It is around that: what am I still carrying out of habit, right?
Yeah.
That's totally misaligned. So, as we say good evening to our dear fellow coach and dear friend, Coach Wayne, the reality is that not Coach Wayne. I'm talking to Coach Wayne. We wanted to say hello to Coach Curtis.
Me and Curtis, we're kindred brothers. We're one of the same. We're one of.
I think my mind is catching up with where we are in the new year. And I love the idea of taking a pause early on to really check in with ourselves, to reset, and begin to identify what's really going on and how we can adjust so that we're not starting the year in this overwhelmed and exhausted place.
You know, Stacy, we have earned some reps, some credits. As a young one says, they talk it. They say reps, reputation, right? And we have earned it because of our years of experience. We've been around, and sometimes we're carrying baggage around things like relationships. We're carrying baggage, just culture. You know, this is what we're supposed to do. Sometimes, you know, we think that there is a timeline on what ought to happen when we get to
Mm.
certain
Mhm.
milestones. You know, you hear families saying, "Hey, you're a big man now. You're 21. You should move out, get a job, and do this." But that's not necessarily true. You know, as a parent, you might want that, but it's not always true for circumstances depending on where people really are and what's going on. Context.
You're absolutely right. I mean, current culture is talking a lot about or demonstrating our need to hustle when we know in this season and this saging stage, as you would say, that wisdom invites us to look at what's happening and subtract what's not working, what's draining us, and begin to identify those things so we can get rid of them.
Men, there's a gender difference too, Stacy. I know, fellas, we have been trained and taught that we provide, we protect, and there's a lot of stress on us to do that. And though it's important when we talk about security, today it looks very differently.
Mm,
And we put ourselves under duress if we are supposed to be at this particular place in terms of what we are providing or how we protection in the way of safety, not necessarily being a security guard. But how do we how do we do that? And is it at 40, at 50, at 55, 55 and a half that we should be at these milestones? We carry that and label with that stuff.
mm. Yeah, yeah. The you used the word expectation earlier, right? So it is the label of expectation, thinking that and not that expectation is always a bad thing, but thinking that because we were going to be there, because this is the way things are, and this is the way we wanted things to be. That you're right, it is a weight. Those expectations can be a weight, and oftentimes women carry a lot of emotional labor, a lot of emotional weight. Whether it be from relationships or financial situations. And we also tend to carry responsibility sometime that may not necessarily be ours. And that weight of that responsibility can cause us to feel exhausted or overwhelmed.
So I would challenge folks to say at the start of this year, take an audit of what's going on. Are you already exhausted from just getting started?
Hmm.
And if so, it may have nothing to do with what's ahead, but what you're still carrying from behind, the dead weight. You know, what
Hmm.
sort of identities are you still carrying? What myth about
Yeah.
what's supposed to be and who you are that you're still carrying around that you need to let go? Snip, snip.
Yep. Snip, snip. And we recognize that the snip, snip may not always be easy. This question around what are you still responsible for that was never meant to be permanent? And I was reflecting on a conversation I was having with a friend and colleague, and her one of her parents recently passed away. And she was talking about the adjustment that she was still trying to make, because what she was responsible for, the running back and forth to the hospital or the nursing home, the making sure that others were cared for during, the time of illness, things that she was responsible for were not permanent.
Mhm.
And so now, looking at the current season, being able to identify and release those things. And in this instance, is I'm no longer responsible to run back and forth many times a week, as you can relate to this, Wayne, from Harlem to Brooklyn.
Mhm.
And so, recognizing where are we holding on to weight, to responsibilities that may have been responsibilities in the past, even in the recent past, but were not meant to be permanent. And this could be a great opportunity to let them go.
A great opportunity to re-examine and redefine some of these old stuff that has weighed us down,
Mhm.
and likely it will if you're already exhausted and the year just started. What are we in week one, Stacy?
It's
Week
the
one.
eight. Yes,
So
it's so we're actually working on the first full week. And so for those of us that maybe had a little bit of break in there, it's not yet been a full week.
so we're not really going through a productivity exercise, right? It's a truth exercise. I had a client today actually, and I was saying his calendar is filled, and I was saying the idea of success is not about busyness, it's about productivity. You can be
Mhm.
busy but not
Mhm.
productive. And one of the things I would say moving into 2026 is to look at, do an energy audit. Where are you drained, and what gives you energy in the work that you do or the things that you're doing? And if it's draining you,
Mm.
is there a way you can plug that drainage?
Yeah, I just want to echo Curtis's comment in this area that some things, very scriptural, some things need to be pruned, right? Cut away from the tree that we call life so that we can become more fruitful. I could not agree with that statement more. Some things we got to let go, cut away, cut off, as you just said, Wayne, snip, snip.
Yep, yep, yep. So the midlife folks, we're in a position that we can make a decision, we can make a call, and that is be decisive. I will
Hmm.
not expend energy on this anymore, just like that. And we need to hold that boundary line because it's about self preservation and self conservation.
The beautiful thing about the season is we are more immediate to remember that we get to decide there's no longer someone managing or leading us from a life perspective. We get to decide. We get to decide what is of value to us, to our household, to our family, to our quality of life, and decide what things really no longer hold that value. Wayne, one of the things we said we would talk about is a bit of an energy audit. What if you were going to embark upon this energy audit, right? What Where would you begin?
I would start with saying that if I'm forcing something, it's not in alignment.
Mm.
If you're a person of faith, you know that you have a power, right? And
Mhm.
that power is not yours. And when that power is given and you're using that power, there is no force, there's alignment. Things happen for you. Now, I'm not saying that you won't see some resistance and challenges, but when there is alignment, force is different from power. And
Mhm.
so I
Mhm.
would start with looking at the things that I'm forcing, meaning that you just don't feel right about it. It's just not happening. Like, let's look at people who start relationships that they call toxic. They know that they're forcing the thing because it's just not aligned. But nonetheless, they're exhausted trying to track and follow this person that it's just not happening. So I would start with looking at, are there things that I forced, I despite what I heard,
Mhm.
I'm not being
Mm.
obedient.
Mm.
And so I'm forced in the thing. And I start trimming those, Stacy. How about you,
Yeah.
Stacy?
Mm. Mm. You raised the obedient word. Gee whiz, Wayne. I didn't know you were going to go there.
Yes, ma'am.
Um, I, the When I think about an energy audit, um, I think truth is one of the first words that comes to mind, and it is really asking some questions and giving them truthful answers. And in an audit, we're looking at the minutia, and I think it's important to look at the minutia. One of the important things we said when we started with the energy audit is that we're doing so without judgment.
Yes.
And so asking ourselves questions. What is it that gave us energy last year? Right? That comes from a positive place. I tend to, and I often have to correct myself, come from the negative, right? What drained me last year, which is not bad. It's not a bad question. It's a good follow-up. But what gave me energy last year? Let me connect with some of the more positive places where I felt resourced, where I felt powerful, where I felt successful,
Yeah.
and start there. What gave me some energy last year?
Yeah. And I would say that that takes us into another point, which is the need to release, to let go. See, some of us believe, especially when we're younger, that you got to be in the hustle game. You know, you gotta be. You say to someone, "Yeah, how things going, man? I'm grinding, man. I'm struggling." Nah, you don't have to do that. That's part of the forcing stuff. Sometimes you gotta release. You gotta let go, because when there's alignment, purpose comes knocking at your door. You just have to open up and let it slide in. So I think when you're moving forward this year, what are you going to release? And
Mm,
release is not, no shame in the game. It doesn't mean you're quitting. It doesn't mean you're giving up on yourself. Sometimes it's allowing, by releasing, a blessing to come through.
yes, absolutely. And a question that you can use to identify um, some of those things you're going to let go is, what did I keep tolerating because it wasn't that bad? Right? So often we find ourselves in a grind of like, yeah, it's not that bad, or that person requires a lot of energy, but I'm not going to say anything, it's tolerable, etc. And I'm sure that we can all identify. It doesn't have to be something abusive. I'm sure we can all identify some things that we tolerated that didn't serve us, that maybe we put away or compartmentalize as not that bad. But the reality is that they were one of those things that was draining us.
Yeah. Stacey, in your practice
Hmm.
and just observing, is there anything or groups of things that you see or habits that people find very hard to part with, to release?
Yes. Stop putting pressure on yourself to feed someone else's expectations. That that was what Delane said. I think that that's so spot on, because
Yeah.
so often, at least many of the women I've been in conversation with, um, are really taking on these expectations, whether they be real self expectations or perceived expectations of others. And in trying to live up to or achieve or meet someone else's expectations, they're draining themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about you?
You talked about expectations of others, but sometimes we have this false notion that we must be something,
Mm,
and it's a way of self-defining ourselves that actually defeats us. We must recognize that we cannot just be rigid. We must be flexible. We must be agile. And I think the idea that we are only this, and this is how these people, groups of people, supposed to behave, and so we can't release that thing, especially when it comes to age, Stacy. You think about having fun. I
mhm,
want to be stoic and I want to be mature. And so I can't crack a joke. You know what I mean? It's burdensome. We
mm,
carry extra weight when we don't allow ourselves to just be human, to just flow with the goal. Yeah.
mhm, mhm. And to make the decision again. Curtis is on fire. Curtis and Delana on fire tonight. He says, I think the hustle life is how many of us have had to come out. It's come out of necessity. And you are so right, Wayne, in that there's opportunity, right? We get to take back some of some of that narrative that talks about the expectations of others, that talks about even our own expectations of where we would be or what we would have, etc., and decide to say to ourselves, I don't want to carry this anymore. I don't want to carry this expectation or other people's expectations of me, that may not be, and you use the word alignment, that may not be aligned with
Mhm.
who I am now, what I'm supposed to be doing now, what God has called me to do today and next week and next year. There may not be alignment. So I don't want to carry it anymore.
I would invite our listeners to just repeat to themselves that I'm allowed to let go and let be, you know?
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Scripture talks about laying aside every weight, right? Those things that we're carrying, all of that stuff, lay it aside. It's not what you're supposed to be carrying. Not striving, not forcing. Use some wisdom. Lay it aside. Every weight, lay it aside.
Yeah. We went to Audra's cousin's home last New Year's and we had this, the what is it? It's a ritual. It's a thing where you have these candles, floating
Mhm.
candles, and you light them and let them release them. Yeah,
Oh,
you've seen
okay.
them. candles floating in
Mhm.
the air. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we
Mhm. Those
did that New Year's.
lanterns.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
lanterns.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's the idea of releasing, the old stuff or casting a a wish
Mm.
for the new year and sending it out in the universe, right? So
Mhm.
either way, and I would say that I would challenge folks to find a way of having a ritual where you sort of bury last year. The church that I attended a couple of years ago, they had a thing called the burning bowl,
Mm.
and leading up to New Year's, they would literally have the members, the parishioners, write the things of the year that they were discarding and literally have sort of a bowl where they'd put on fire and burn it. And then we'd also write a letter to ourselves for the year we wanted. And later in the year, the pastor's team would mail that back to you and you'd see how you're
Mm.
doing. So I
Mhm.
would say to folks, create a ritual where whether you want to tear it up, burn it, bury it. The things that you want to let go, let them go.
Let them go. Let them go. It is such a great release, and that letting go with intention, as you talked about the burning bowl, um, and other ways that that can be done. It is intentionally identifying and deciding to let things go. To let it go. As you said earlier, you're not quitting, you're not failing, you're not giving up on yourself, but that thing is no longer serving you. It's no longer in alignment with who you are, where you are, and where you're going now.
Yeah. Some people even use a goodbye letter, Stacy.
Mm. Deuces.
Right.
Do they say deuces in do they say deuces in the letter? Release is an act of self-leadership,
Yes,
right?
it
Of
is.
saying, I identify something, it's not serving me anymore. Deuces. I'm gonna go with deuces. I love saying deuces. Okay.
Stacy, I have a word of the year. Yesterday, I ran a group
Mm-hmm.
and I shared that it's a powerful thing, the word of the year. And last year, my word was discernment. And why am I talking about word of the year when we're talking about this? Because you can create a word of the year to help you with unloading or being intentional. And so you want to let go stuff. In letting go stuff, then you must be intentional in terms of the
Mm.
route that you're taking and what you are taking along with you, right? So last year, the word of the year for me was discernment. And that was a lot of things, complex stuff, business and all that in my head. And I had to figure out, which way I wanted to go. I was at this
Mm-hmm.
crossroad, stressed about it. And so I started a lot of prayers with, asking God for discernment to make the right decisions for how to lead and all that stuff and how to follow too. So this year, and I think it served me well. Certainly, by the time the year wrapped up, we had achieved quite a few goals from my vision board. That's the other thing, too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this year, one of my uh, clients had a word, and I borrowed it. I was going to say steal it, but it's free, and anybody here can borrow it too. And it's expansion, but
Mm.
it's expansion with intent. It's not careless expansion. It's not just it's to grow in specific areas of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I start each activity with the intention of how can I expand here?
Beautifully said. And as Delane said, you also need to be intentional to ensure that what you write, that word, right, you really work on achieving or you work toward. And so as you said, you've chosen expansion and with intention. And I love the example that you gave of your discernment being your word last year and how that got to serve as a bit of a guidepost, right? Or a check-in. And so as we move forward, if a word or some words of the year is your thing or you want to give it a try, you use it throughout the year. You don't just write it down and then decide, "Yeah, okay, on with the next." You use it throughout the year to keep you focused on that. And so I think it's such an important way, and an easy way. There are so many ways you can keep this word in front of you, but more importantly, that you can intentionally exercise your habits, your life, your release, your decisions against or around the word, to make sure that you are staying the course that you want to stay.
Yeah. And the key is that you don't need a hard reset. You
Mhm.
probably need a lighter one, right?
Yes. When we talk about release, there's kind of three categories, right? And that we touched a little bit on relationships, right? Releasing relationships that are no longer serving you. We you touched well, Wayne, on internal narratives, right? Releasing those mindsets, those things that you're constantly saying to yourself, that maybe once protected you but now no longer serve you. And the opportunity to release habits that maybe numb you. I'm a wine drinker. I don't mind putting it out there. Yet I'm very aware of when I am maybe having a second glass, less so because I'm enjoying the wine and more so because I just don't want to think about the things that I'm thinking about or that I need to think about. So the habits that numb or distract us, are things we want to look at as opportunities to release.
No doubt, no doubt. So, Stacy, before we
Hmm.
go, here's a challenge to folks that's catching the replay or listening live. What are you willing to let go for 2026? What is what is loading your carriage, and how can you lighten that load? What doesn't serve you anymore? And by the way, that includes something as practical as going in your closet and throwing stuff out, right? That you haven't worn in 6 years. So what are there's some closets like that. I trust me. What are you letting go or willing to?
What are you letting go? And I declare, here's a declaration. I declare I'm allowed to begin again without dragging everything with me, letting it go.
Yep, yep. State, I think we have to share this a brand new year. The
Hmm.
fact that we are available to help to guide folks in terms of their coaching. And,
Yes.
everyone has a coach of some sort. Sometimes we don't formalize it and call it that, but
Hmm.
everyone's been coached, right? Even through a
Yeah.
book.
At some point, and the reality is that oftentimes we need someone that will not only listen to us and ask us the right questions, but that will listen to us in a way that allows us to dig deeper into ourselves. And it's the digging deeper into ourselves, which I think a good coach, I have too, um, are very skilled at, that then helps us see something afresh in our own thinking, in our own way of being, that we can begin to address. So, yes, you know how to reach Coach Wayne. We always make sure that the information is in the show notes on both
Yeah.
the audio podcast and the video podcast. You also know how to reach Stacy, Coach Stacy. You know how to reach me at thestacymlewis.com. Most importantly, we want to make sure that you know about Wayne's free self alignment assessment. It is still available and it's still a powerful tool, y'all. It's still a powerful tool. So
Yep, yep.
that will also be in the show notes.
And it's free. Free. That's the best part of it.
It's the FREE. I think another engagement step is if you identified either listening to the episode or after you listened to the episode and thought about what is that one thing you're releasing, please share it with us. Share it in the comments, the DMs, or at least make a note of it in your journal so that you can keep track of what you're letting go with intention and without judgment.
That's right. States, we'll do this again in a week.
Absolutely. Remember, you don't have to do this reset by yourself. Coach Wayne and I are here and we are cheering you on. I'm cheering you on. And Wayne,
I'll see you at the top.
toot, toot, toot. Thanks for tuning in to Midlife Revolution Unleashed. We're grateful you're part of this journey.
If you love this episode, share it, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss another episode.
I'm Coach Stacy, and I'm cheering you on.
And I'm Coach Wayne, and I'll see you at the top.